Hello everyone and welcome to my video. This is a project I've been building for my work and I'd like to share a feature I added into it with y'all today, and that is a VBA user form interface for passwords. Now for passwords, I personally prefer user forms over blocky cells and command buttons because these can pop up any way you'd like anywhere throughout your sheets in your workbook. Also, your project may have different tasks, i.e. macros, that you want to require a password for, like macros for activating a certain sheet or deleting something or stuff like that. So you can have your password dialog like this one show before each macro you want to run a password for. Essentially, the user would have to bypass this in order for the macro to run. And then this is just a fairly basic, common, user form that has a text box with hidden characters. I put in the characters, right? And then if I click continue and the password's wrong, it'll tell me so in this nice red text. And then if I get the password right and I click continue, it'll close this and run your macro code down here. Now, if I just can't get it right, it'll be stuck in continue. If I click cancel, it'll exit sub and nothing will run below, which is what we want. Now, with the use of a password throughout your macros, you're going to want a way to change your password, right? So in a separate user form, and don't judge my settings, I'm still working on this dialog box, but with quite a bit more intricacy, we're going to have a very familiar and common change password interface that the user can be comfortable with. And in here is just pretty generic stuff. It's just, tells the user a little bit what to do here and the requirements of the password. And of course, you have to enter your current password, set your new one, confirm your new one, and then you click set that, and then, or you can cancel this. Basic stuff. Also, when we put some characters into here, it is automatically hidden, and then we get this nice little mask and unmask icon here, which I think looks really nice. So we have that for each of these, of course, and then last but not least, we have our little message in red down here for any one of these criterias that are not met. So I am going to go step by step on how to make this, including the code in a blank workbook. But before that, I do want to appreciate Randy Excel, or Randy with Excel for Freelancers. I'll leave a link to his channel in the description. He's a big inspiration for all workbook and VBA projects I do, as far as my style, how I structure it, how it looks, and so on. He's really professional, has a lot of good content, very insightful in VBA. I highly recommend you go check him out. So anyway, I'll go ahead and create a blank workbook. We can start building this from the ground up in, and I'll also throw this in there. All right, we have just generated a brand new blank workbook. We will be primarily using VBA user forms, of course, but there are a couple quick things to set up here. So the first thing is we need the developer tab since we will be using macros. And to do that, we're going to go to File, Options, Customize Ribbon, and we're going to check Developer here. We're going to click OK. And that's if y'all haven't done that already. We have all the developer stuff to use now. Next, we're going to save this, more save options, browse. I'll just throw it on my desktop, and then we need to save it as a macro-enabled workbook since we will be using macros, of course. I'll just call this password. Okay, now we have a saved file to work with. Next, I want to create a second sheet, and this sheet is going to act as the password data. And a side note to this, I highly recommend y'all have a sheet designated for background data such as formulas and chart data and VBA yes and no's, etc. That way on your main sheet, it's cleaner and you're not having to see all that and it's calculating it in the background on a hidden sheet. In this case, we're just going to use this for password data. So the first thing we want to do is we want to set the password. So I'll just put that here. And we'll make a password. We'll just do test with an uppercase T. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We'll just put a character in there, hashtag, and there we go. This will be the password we use throughout the sheet, and this is basically where the password will be stored. Now, I'll just customize this a little bit, auto fit that. I'll make this bold. I'll give this borders, make this thick maybe, and I like to just make things look a little clearer. Now, of course, you can still see the password. So a couple things you can do here is first you can make it the font color the same color as your background, or what I suggest is to right click, go to Format Cells, under Number, go to Custom, and we're going to put 3 semicolons. As you can see, you no longer see it. Click OK, and that works better. And that's just in case someone changes the background of this or one thing or the other. Now you can still see the password in the formula bar, right? So I am going to pick a cell that is going to act as our default selection, or the only selection that you'll have if you are to go into this sheet. In this case, I'll pick A1 and I'll format this, go to protection, and unlock this one cell right here. And now what I can do is I can go to review, I can protect the sheet, and I want to not allow anything except selecting unlocked cells, which was only that one we set. And of course, we would have a password, so not just anyone can unlock this. And then we would click OK. Now you can see there's no way I can get into and see that password. And if I tried to unprotect it, you would have a password on it. So it wouldn't allow what I just did. But for this video and for now, we're just going to leave it unprotected. Side note on that as well, if you do have this protected, you're going to need to have VBA unprotected anytime before it sets or changes data on this sheet. Otherwise, you'll get an error since VBA can't change cells that are on a locked sheet. And if you have a password, there is code for that, and it's on Google. You know, it's good old Stack Overflow and everything. But for now, like I said, we'll just leave it unlocked. Okay, one more thing we need on this sheet for some background data is whether or not to show the password, right? Show the password. And we're going to have current, we're going to have new, and we're going to have re-enter. Okay, and what this is basically going to do here is the cell values here are going to act as essentially variables for VBA. So while the user form is open and I click the icon to unmask it to show that password, we'll say show password yes, depending on which mask I click. And this is there's only going to be temporary values in here while the user form is open. And again, these values just act as basically the cell values or temporary variables. So then I'll just kind of finish making this look better. And there we go. And we'll use this later. Next, I'll just go ahead and rename the sheet and call it password. Enter, okay. And that is everything we need for this sheet in this video. And now next, this sheet is just going to be stuff, right? It's going to be your stuff. And this will be whatever your sheet is, and it may not be password, whatever other sheet you store your data on. And all we're going to do here, and just for the sake of this video, we're just going to insert a simple user form button. We don't want to assign a macro right now. We'll do that later. And this will just be something that needs password. So, and this could be a button or, you know, an event or activate the sheet, whatever it may be that you want to require a password. I'll just have it as a button for this video. I'm going to copy this again because we're going to have another thing we're working on here. That was weird. And this is going to be change password, right? So these are the two things we're focusing on. Now I'm going to save this, and our progress is saved, and that is everything we need to set up the actual workbook. Saving and closing our workbook for now, we are going to get our password masking icons, the little eye icons, from the internet. And I'm just going to open my browser, and I use Google Images. So under Google, I am going to search password eye icon. You can search, you know, masking, password, symbol, whatever. It will show the same results roughly. And under the images, we're just going to kind of browse for the icons we like. Now, a really important note as you're browsing here, you have to have the masked and unmasked symbol be the exact same eyes, with the only difference of the slash. Because on our user form, these are going to overlap exactly. So with that, it's a little easier to actually get one that has them in the same picture instead of trying to find them in separate pictures. Like this wouldn't be compatible with this, right? So let's just browse and find a picture we like. This has text in it, that won't do. I like this one, we can use this one. So after clicking it, I'm going to right click, save image as. I don't care what the name is, I'm just going to put it on my desktop as is. Okay, and here is the image. Now you can use whatever photo editing software works best for you. I actually found that PowerPoint works best for this, just for its availability and the fact that it actually makes it easier to get the exact dimensions since it snaps, which we'll see in a sec. So for this video, I'm going to use PowerPoint to edit this image. So opening PowerPoint, I'm going to go to blank presentation, and then I'm going to go ahead and delete these default subtitle things. Okay, now under new slides, I'm going to click blank. That way we have 2 slides. Okay, on the first slide, I am going to go to insert, pictures, this device, and go to the desktop, and select the picture we just downloaded. And here it is. And then that's kind of cool, but we don't need that. All right, and then let's just make the height 7, which will automatically adjust that as well. And that looks good. And then we'll just bring it like right here. That works. Okay, now I'm going to copy this and click on slide 2, put it in here as well. And now we can start editing. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to select the image, and under picture format, I'm going to click the top crop button. And here we just kind of eyeball it, right? Now it's important we do the slash one first so we get the dimensions of that one first, since it will be taller due to the slash. So we just want to kind of eyeball this, and there's going to be a little bit of space past that black. That looks good. Probably just a smidge here. That looks good. And then about right there. That looks good for a size. So then we will just click away, and now we have our first icon. Okay, so next I'm going to copy this. I'm going to click on slide 2, and I'm going to paste it in here. And the reason I am putting a copy of this in here is because since we set the dimensions of this already, we can overlap it exactly with the unmasked eye here. And now when we crop this one on slide 2, it'll automatically snap. So we'll make sure we select the big one, go to picture format, and we're going to do the same thing. Now this time you'll see it snap, and that's because it notices the other picture that is overlapped with it and it's snapping to it, right? So the unmasked icon here, we don't want to do right up against the black here because of that slash, right? Because remember, it's overlapping the exact dimension of the other one. So we're going to actually let it snap with those little red lines like it did automatically. Make sure it every side that's already even. And there we go. I might move that just a smidge there. All right, and then we click away and it is cropped. And now we have both individual eyes. Next thing we do is we right click each of these, and we're going to go to save picture as. Okay, I'll just put it on my desktop again. Now this we'll just call the mask icon, right? Because this is for, you can't see it, it's masked. And then this one we'll save as picture again on the desktop, and we'll call it unmask icon. And then we'll save, verify those both saved. Excellent, they did. And now we no longer need our PowerPoint, so we can exit without saving. We no longer need our original picture. We can throw that away. And we have our two icons. We can close this now. And this is everything we need for the user form externally. Next, we are going to open our workbook again, and we are going to add the user form for password change. So under Developer and Visual Basic, or Alt F11, you can go to Insert and then User Form. And then I'm going to go ahead and make this really big for now, just so I have room to work with. And the first thing we want to do is actually add all the objects we're going to use. So we're going to have a label for the choose strong password and information, a label for password requirements, a label for enter the current password, then enter the new password, re-enter the new password, and we're going to have a label for that red text that tells us what criteria we didn't meet up here. And then we're going to add a text box for current password, and then text box for new password. And this is just the inputs for those passwords. And those are the three text boxes we need. Next, we're going to add a command button for set new password, and then a command button for cancel. And this is all the objects we need for now. Next, we're going to position these. So the first thing we need to make sure of is that they all have the same width. That way the end of the user form is flush with all the objects and nothing's too short or going past the user form. So I like to do a width of 180, and I'm going to go ahead and hold shift and click every single one of these like so. I don't know why that's acting weird, but we're going to go down here to width. We're going to put 180. I think that's a good width. And then this little stubborn guy here, we're also going to do 180 like so. All right, next we want to position these. So for the first one, I'm just going to make sure that it is first and foremost has a little sliver to the left and a little sliver on top. That way nothing's being cut off. And then right underneath it, this will be flush right up against it, except one. I like to leave a little bit of space between my labels. And then see that cut off, that needs to actually go right there. Perfect. Okay, and now label 3 was the enter current password, and we only need one line of text on that, so just a height of 1 there. And then the text box I put flush up against it because it correlates to this label, so it's very clear that these correlate to each other. And then we're going to do the same thing with this, except it's going to be 1 down because it is the next label for new password, right? And again, 1 line, and then flush, and then 1 line space, 1 line height there, and its text box is flush, like so. And in this text box, since it'll be invisible most of the time, I'll just put it flush, and then we need the space of 1. This is going to be the error message. And then the command buttons, there's 2 things you can do, and this is up to you. You can either have them like this, where they're one on top of the other, or what I like to do is have them next to each other just to make it as short as possible, and it looks a little more uniform. So I'm going to make sure this is flush. That looks flush to me. And then this can be a little bit smaller. This can be a little bit bigger. This is our cancel button, right? Okay, everything is positioned to where it needs to be. Now we're going to add some formatting. And as far as formatting and positioning, y'all can do it however you want to. Like, this is completely up to how you want your user form to look. So first and foremost, I'm going to start with our basic information label up here. And this one I like to give just a single border. And then I want to tell the user to choose a strong password. So they kind of get an idea of what's going on here. And then we also want to advise them that passwords are case sensitive. Right, okay. And that's all I want to do there. This will be the password requirements. I'll do that one last. This is going to be enter, and this isn't saying what it is, this is telling the user what to do, right? Because you have to enter the current password, right? That's what this box is. And then I also like to give these a little border as well, and give this a little space so it's not right up against the border. That looks good. We're gonna do the same thing here, enter new password. This one's the new password, right? And then also is going to have a border in our little space there. And then this one we'll say re-enter, we'll just say confirm, actually confirm. So I could spell confirm new password, right? Confirm new password. Okay, and we added in our little space there. And then this will have a little border. Excellent. Next, we have this label here, and this will be invisible most of the time. The only thing we need to permanently set for this is its font to be red, right? And VBA is going to completely set this text upon the use of this user form throughout the whole way. So we don't need to put anything in that. So for the fore color, the font color, it is going to be this nice vibrant red like I like it, and that's good. Now for the command button, this one is going to be set new password or update password, or whatever you want it to say. Again, it's completely however y'all want to make this look and what you want to make the text say. And then this will be cancel. Now set new password, I also like to give it this nice little green color just so it's clear for what the purpose of this whole thing is. And then we will start formatting these. So we're going to set some password characters, right? And what's nice about text boxes is they give you the option. Under categorize appearance, we have password character. So this is every time you type in text or numbers or anything into here, it will appear as whatever you put here. Most people, like the little star, and that's fine. It can be whatever y'all want. I personally like to do the little bulleted character, the little circle, and you can get that multiple ways. One way I believe is you can go into Microsoft Word and insert tab, symbol, and then under wingdings, it's on the right, and you can just insert it and copy that and then paste it into here. Or you can just Google it, and I'll just do that right now. So I'm going to Google bullet character, and this is what I like to use. So I'm going to highlight and copy that, and paste it here. I'm going to do that for every single one of my text boxes for password character. Okay, excellent. And we're going to use that as just a bulleted list in here for our password characters and requirements. So, or password requirements, I'm sorry. So I'm going to actually put that in right now. Okay, I just copied it from my other workbook, but basically I'm just saying, minimum 8 characters, 30 characters in length is max, at least one number, special character upper lower, just pretty generic stuff. And then, by the way, to go to the next line, you're going to have to hold Control and push Enter to go to the next line. So now we have our list. It is a little longer, so we're going to have to adjust below here. So I'm going to hold Shift again and select every single one of these. And I'll just go down a little ways for now. And then we'll bring this down. Okay, and about right there fits everything. So now I'm going to select all these again by holding Shift. Right, and I'm going to bring them up, leave that one little space, and that looks good. Next, we're going to insert our symbols that we downloaded earlier. And to do that, I am not going to use this little image because it doesn't interact the same way as the label does, i.e. you cannot click an image or get a click event like you can a label. So we're going to be using labels for this. So I'm going to insert a label here, And also, side note, it's important that you add these after the text box. That way they overlap the text box. Just a side note there. But anyway, to make this the picture, what we're going to do is with it highlighted, we're going to scroll down to picture right here, click this little button, and on the desktop, we're going to click our icons that we made earlier. So I'm going to open that, And the first one we're going to do is going to be the masked, and the second one we'll go ahead and say is the unmasked eye. Excellent. Now to format these, they need to be the exact same color, background color as what they're over, which is this text box. So the text box's background is white, so these need to also be white, right? Or in this case, it would be highlight text. Also, you can see there's a little bit of bordering blockiness kind of look there. So it's going to have to be a little bit smaller than the text box, right? And that looks like a good size, and maybe that's a little long. That is small, but should be visible, right? So that looks good. Now, the second issue, as you can see here, is it is snapping to the top and bottom, and we can't center it manually with our mouse. And when it snaps to the top, it'll still show the same bordering, blockiness, visual, and we don't want that same down here. We also want it centered. So we're going to have to manually move it here under position. So I'll just say it's left. It's about one. And this is where you just kind of eyeball, and it kind of depends on what you downloaded and what size you set and everything. Right. So I think 166 is good. So 166 is good for the left, right? And that's relative to the whole user form, right, from here. Because the top and the left are fixed points on the user form, right? Because you can move these other ones. So next to center it, we're going to deal with top, again, relative to the user form. And we'll just go +3, and that's down, of course. And that looks about centered. Okay, +3. So we have a left of 166 and a top of 135. And this has to have that same position as this after we format it, of course, which we can do the same thing really quick. And just kind of eyeball it. Actually, here's a little tip. I'll put it back, but to make sure that it's the exact same, because this is important, to make sure it's the exact same dimensions as this, you can eyeball it a little bit, and then you can see these little dashed lines here kind of overlap perfectly. That's how you know it's the same size and will overlap perfectly. So I'm going to go ahead and put this back to 166, 135, right? So 166 and 135. And this will also be those same dimensions, 166 and 135. Now, what we do for these two is we add two more user forms, right? And we're going to do the same thing for these two user forms, or sorry, labels. So these labels are going to be the exact same process as this. We format the white background, we make it the same size, right? Like we're going to make sure we can kind of eyeball and look and see it's the same thing. Insert our pictures, everything else. Now, before we overlap these perfectly, there is something important that we're going to need to do, and that is we have to go through and double click everything. Essentially just know what it is. And the way I do that is I go through and I double click, right? And we are going to use the click events anyway. So I'll double click it and I'll label what that is. Well, label 7 was the right, the mask of, the current, you just label it, right? So I'm actually going to go through and label these right now and then insert the pictures and formattings for this. Our other masking icons are now added and formatted, and then I have gone through each object that will be referenced in the code and gave them a label for what they are in here. And then additionally, we are going to be using Userform Initialize. We know what label 1 and 6 are, and we're going to be using text box to enter as well as change for all the text boxes actually. So to wrap up here, the first thing we want to do, now that we know what they are, we want to overlap these perfectly, right? So for the first one, it was the left of 166, right? And all these are going to be the left of 166. They're going to be uniform. It's just the top is going to be different because they're further down from each other. So this one was +3, which is 35, and that overlaps perfectly. This one's position is going to also be left of 166. And then 168 plus 3 is 171, and that is perfect. And then this one is going to be 166, and then 204 plus 3 is 7, right? And now they are all overlapped perfectly. Now let's go ahead and actually give our user form a name for what it is. So under the user form's caption, we're going to say that this dialog is change password, right? It's change your password. And then if it's in one of your projects, and I like to do this, I like to put a little dash and say, what my project's name is. For the sake of this video, it doesn't really matter, just change password. And then we'll give it a proper code name as well. So we'll just say change, we'll just abbreviate password, and that's fine. And then last but not least, we are actually going to properly size this. So we'll just kind of roughly give it the same dimensions and then kind of feel it out by selecting the user form and playing. And that looks okay to me. All right, now we are going to start coding each of the eye icons or the mask icons. So before anything, what do we want to do when we first initialize? So first of all, the error box, because we just opened the dialog, there's going to be nothing in it. So we're going to say that this user forms label 6, right? That's the error box. And its caption is going to be nothing, right? And like we mentioned earlier, this is going to be automatically handled by VDA. We're not going to do that at all here. And next, I'm just going to say that label 1, right? So label 1 is font. And this is something I like to do. I just like to make it italic, just so it looks a little better, right? And we can actually see that. This is now italic for the basic info box, and that's just something I personally like. And the next thing we need to have happen is the change password command button 1, right? So I'm going to say command button 1 set focus. And the reason I do this is so it doesn't default to selecting into here and running the change or enter macro, but instead it'll automatically default to that. That way when you click this, it'll run the macros accordingly. So you can see this is now selected here. And we can just set cancel real quick, because cancel, right? Command button 2 is as easy as unload the user form, like so, and that's it. Now, that's everything I want to have happen initially. We're also going to need to reset the password maskings. Okay, and to do this, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to set the text box's password characters, right? So password character to be the symbol we set earlier. So by default, as soon as you open it, it's going to be our password character, which we can just copy from here, and then we can input it here. And that's going to be for all 3 of our text boxes. So we can just change this to 2 and 3. Next, every single one of our icons need to be invisible. Right? And we declared those down here. So that was label 7. So we can find label 7 here. Dot visible, we don't want to see it initially, is false. And there are 6 total of these, and for me they're in chronological order, which makes it easier. But it might be different for you depending on how you added things, but mine are in chronological order, so I can just say 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And that was 7 through 12, right? So 7, 8, 9, 10. And we had 11, and we had 12. And then the next thing we need to do is we actually need to set these to be empty, because when I'm in the user form using it, I don't want anything from the last time I was in that dialog to be remembered. And this is just saying whether or not I should show the user form. So we are setting everything to default where we don't want to show it. So these temporary cell variables here are going to be blank. So all we need to do for that is say worksheets. And what is the worksheet? It is password. So we're going to say the worksheet's password is, and then the range, and the ranges were C6 through C8. So we're just going to say C6 through C8. And we're going to clear those contents, right? Okay, and that's what's going to happen initially. So that is everything for our initialize and cancel. And we no longer need these. We know what they are. Oh, we need that. Okay, so starting with our first icon, right? When we click it. So what we're going to do is we want to basically toggle it. And it's going to be the same for the current passwords OpenEye icon as well as the /i, right? So we're going to check if the range, right, we're going to have the same ranges up here, C6. So C6 dot value equals nothing, right? And this will make more sense as we continue to do this. And then I got something wrong. I missed a little quote there. So if the current, right, because we're under current, is nothing, then that must mean that we're not supposed to show it, right? Because this will say yes if we're supposed to show password. So if it doesn't have anything in it, what do we want to do? We want to say it equals yes, right? Because we're toggling it. So if there's nothing in it, we're saying something's in it. And then the password character is going to be unmasked, right? So remember that we're dealing with current password, which was text box 1. So I'm going to copy this. I'm going to paste it here. And it's going to be nothing, right? Because we are saying, yes, we want to show it. So there's no password characters. So it'll just show the characters as we type them. And then the next thing we need to do is we need to say the labels for this, for current password, are the that we don't want to see the /i, right? We want to see the OpenEye because we're seeing it. So to do that, we're just going to say that label 7, right, which is our /i for current password, is going to be false. And then 8 is going to be true. So we just say trues like so. So this is just if it is blank in here, we are setting it to be yes if we click it. And then if we click it and it is yes, right, so that's else, we're just basically going to do the opposite. So if it is not blank, then that must mean yes is in it. So then that means we just need to set it to blank, right? We're going to do the opposite. And then the password character, and again, text box 1, is going to be the hidden one for our character we set. And it's going to be the same visibility except inverted. So now that's going to be true and this is going to be false, right? We're just doing the opposite of what we did up here. And then of course we want to end the if, right? And then that actually ends the sub. So if that makes sense as we click it, it just depends on the state, right? Now we're going to do that exact same check because either one of them is going to be visible. Neither one of them will be visible at the same time. So as we click it, we want to hide them accordingly, and that's for either one. So label 8, which is also current password, if I click it, and it's just checking based off of this status, if it's yes or blank, right? Exact same check here. And that is it for 7 and 8. Now 9 and 10 correlate to new password. So that is going to be the exact same thing, and all we need to do is just update what we're referring to here. So first of all, and it's easier if I just paste it in from up here and update it. So it's going to be C7 for new, and we're going to say C7 again, and it's not going to be text box 1, it's going to be 2, and then it is going to be 9, right? 9 and 10. So we're going to say 9 and 10. So 10, so also 9 and 10 here, and then text box 2, and then 7. And that is everything, and be careful, it's easy to miss stuff. So that is also going to be true for label 10 for new password. And then we basically just do the exact same thing. So we're going to paste this and paste this for 11 and 12 because that was for our re-enter, which is C8. So we're going to put 8. We're going to put 8, and this is now text box 3, right? So text box 3, and we're on 11 and 12. So you kind of see what I'm doing here. And then text box 3, and then 11 and 12. And then 8, 8, 3, 11, 12, 11. This is a little tedious. I apologize, but this is how it works. So, and then 8, and I believe that's everything. Excellent. So that is everything we need to do for the click event. So when we click an icon, we want to run these toggle checks. So if it's yes, sorry, if there's nothing in it, then that means I clicked it and I want something to be in it. If there was already something in it when I clicked it, so that would be otherwise it's not empty from here, then we want to make it empty and set it back. And that's true for every single one of these for their corresponding text boxes and labels. Now, current password and the text box changes and enters and all this stuff is going to be a little bit different, right? Because we're doing a different event here. So for changing it, and this means every single time I enter or remove a character from in there, what do I want to do? Well, the first thing I want to check is the len, which is just saying the amount of characters for what? Well, it's going to be change password, and it's going to be in text box 1. So how many characters are in text box 1 dot value? And we're checking that by saying greater than 0. So if there's greater than 0, that's what I want to know. And then if it is greater than 0, well, then there's another thing we basically need to do, and that is another toggle, essentially. So if it's greater than 0 and there's something in there, then just remember the last position based off the variable in our cell. So we're basically just going to do the same thing. We're going to say worksheets. As a matter of fact, I can just copy this, and we are actually working with text box 1, so that would be 6, right? And we're seeing if it says yes. So if it says yes, right, it's a little bit different. Then we want to do the password character is, it's right here. Password character is nothing, right? And this is text box 1. And then just the true and false, or the false and true, sorry, like before. And all we're doing here is just the same thing. We're just doing a toggle, right? But that's within this if. So this toggles that. Now, for the change, we're not actually going to be changing any of the variables because this is just checking the state as you add and enter stuff. And else, what do we want to do? Well, we're going to do the opposite. So we're going to say the character is actually bulleted. And then we're going to do the opposite of this. So we're going to say 7 is true, right? And then we're going to say 8 is false. Okay. Then we're going to say end if to this, and that ends the toggle. So this is all its own if, which is pretty much the same toggle, except it doesn't actually update the variable status here. It's just checking it, because remember, we're just changing in here, and we're showing whether or not it is over 0. So we have an else if now, so else if. And what else are we checking for? Well, it's going to be this, but it's not going to be greater than 0. It is going to be 0. It's not really going to be less than 0, but same thing. So it's either going to be something's in there or something's not in there, right? So else if it's 0, what do we want to do? Well, in that case, we just don't want to show anything, because if there is nothing in this box, and I don't want any of these to show, so we just say it is false completely by saying both 7 and 8 are false, right? just like that. And then we end if, and then that ends that sub. So that's every single time we add a character. So it's basically checking for something in there or not in there for every time we change it. So when we change it by removing the only one that was in there, and now it equals 0, it's just going to not show that symbol. And that's how I want it to act. Y'all can update that accordingly. Okay, and now for enter, we're pretty much going to start with the exact same thing, right? So we're going to start with the exact same check. Now, the only difference is we're going to have an if down here to check the status of our error box. So we're going to say if change password label, and that was what? That was label 6, right? So if the caption equals, and put a little space, invalid password. We're gonna set this stuff later under the set password macro, but for now we'll just put it here. So invalid password. So if it equals invalid password, then what do we want to do? Well, we want to set this to be blank again. And the reason I set that to be blank again, if it equals invalid password, is because we're entering the text box, right? So if I enter the text box, then I don't want to see our annoying little red message if I'm in there editing stuff, right? Like I go back into the text box, so it'll go away. And then this will obviously appear again if I get it wrong again. But that is everything for change and enter. So text box 2 and 3 are going to be the same thing, right? But there is going to be a unique check because it is new password. So the first thing we're going to do is copy this first part. That's going to be the same. And then update each of these values accordingly. So text box 2, of course, that's range 7. And that's text box 2. And we are dealing with 9 and 10 for this one. So I'll actually update these now. So 9 and 10. Text box 2, text box 2. And that should be everything. So everything's the same for the first part of the check, right? Now we're going to have one extra if under our change for text box 2 because this is the new password. There's a little more we're checking for. It's setting the new criteria. So as I'm changing it, I'm also checking for the len of the same text box, right? And then its value. So we're seeing how many characters. Now I'm going to say if the characters are over 30. Now the reason I'm saying this is because, right, remember one of my criteria was you can't go over 30. Now I could have it say you cannot go over 30 once I click set password, but it's nice to have it real time. So the moment I change, right, by adding an extra one and it's 31, it appears real time. So it's nice to have that in here. So if it does equal 30, then we want to make the caption say that, right? And what's that going to be? That's going to be in our error caption. So that was label 6 and its caption. And we're going to say the new, we'll just say new password. I put these little spaces here, by the way, because of the sizing, so it looks better and it's flush with this. Just a side note. But we're going to say new password. We'll just say cannot exceed 30, and we'll just say characters like that. Okay, and then otherwise, we're just gonna say the caption is blank, like so. And that's the end of that end if. So that had a little bit of a special if there. That's everything we need for text box 2 changes because that is the new password. Now the enter is going to be a little bit more, but it's going to start with this same 2 ifs here. Right, we're checking that same thing. Okay, and then we're not going to check over 30, obviously. That'll already be there. So this is going to have a check for all the possible errors there are. So if there's any like new password doesn't match, invalid password, anything like that we want to clear, but we're going to have to check label 6 to see if it has every single one of those. However, we haven't programmed that yet into our set password sub, but we will come back to this. And I'll just put like a little note here to come back and update this. okay? But there will be another if here to check label 6 for every single possible error we can have as soon as we enter it. Now, text box 3 change is really simple. It's basically the same thing here, and then we just obviously do our updates where we're dealing with text box 3. So we know that's 8, 3, and we know that that deals with 11 and 12. So we set all these to be 11, 12, 12, 11, text box 3, text box 3, I believe that is everything. Right, and then that is actually everything we need for text box change, right? Now you could add, I know in this change we added this if as well, but it'd be, in my opinion, it's kind of redundant to also have it in the verifying text box, right? Like this is just to verify. If the issue already exists in your initial password, then it doesn't change that you're verifying a messed up password already. So it's kind of redundant. This is just a matter of showing its little icons or not. So then, you guessed it, we're going to put it in text box 3 enter as well. And this is also going to have a big long if to check for every single, because when we enter this, that means we're editing something again, and I don't want to see any of that red text. So we'll just put another note to ourselves here to update that later. Okay, and that should be everything we need for our icon toggles. And we can actually test this by going here and playing the whole sub, clicking into here, and as soon as I add text, it shows our icon. As soon as I delete text, it removes, and that behaves the same for all these. I can click them, it'll show it, and you can also see it real time updating here, and it's working beautifully, like so. Now, it does remember its last state, so I'll show an example of that. Actually, I think I show it here. So we click unmask here, right? And it's showing the characters I put in, and then I click away. Now, if I click set password, it would clear it. But if I go into here and it doesn't update, as you can see. So if you really wanted, you could say once it hits 0, set this to be no again. That way it's not still showing it when I start entering something again. So you could just say in the change module, as soon as I say hit 0, then not only make that all false, but change this, clear this as well. That way it doesn't remember. So see, if it goes to 0, but then I put it in again, it remembers its last state. That's up to y'all. I'm not really concerned about that, but we do see that everything is behaving like it should be. Okay. And now that everything's verified, that completes all this code, and we can start on our set password code. So set password is going to be a little more interesting because what we're basically doing here is we are checking all the text boxes and labels accordingly to make sure that they meet the criteria we listed in our password requirements here, making sure our code backs this up all the way. So that's going to be basically seeing the characters, if it equals whatever. So the first thing we're going to do is actually reset everything just like we do on initialize. So I'm going to copy this and paste it here. So when we click set password, these will go back to masked. You won't see the icons anymore. It'll reset the range variables we have in our password sheet, all that good stuff. Now to start checking the criteria, right, we're going to say check password criteria. Okay. Now, the first thing we're going to check is if the current password matches. So that's going to be in text box 1. And we're going to say if it's anything but our password we have saved here, which is in B3 on our password sheet, we're going to say if it is anything but that. So that was worksheets password, and then B3, and of course that's the value of it, right? Then we want to set our error message, and all these are going to set the error message, right? So we're going to say that it's an invalid password, or we could say invalid current password too. We could just say invalid current password. And we're basically going to put this up here as well. So now we're saying that it equals that because it did not match. That is the first check we do. Next, alternatively, if it does equal B3, meaning we did put in the right password, and so I'm just going to bring this down a little bit, and if the new passwords didn't match, so we have those other two text boxes to think about now. So we get past the fact that we put it in right. Now we say, okay, we put it in right, but where are the other text boxes at? So that was change password text box 2. And then of course it's value. So if this equals that, and this is anything but text boxes 3, meaning your passwords did not match your new passwords, then we want to say something else here. And we're just going to make this say, we'll say re-enter, if I could spell entered password does not match. We'll just say that does not match. We want to keep these short because we only have so much room on that caption, right? And that's if we put in the right password, but these do not match. Okay, so now we get past that. The next thing we want to check, right? So else if we have text box 1. So if the current password's value is equal to the range again, we're doing the same check here again as this. So if it equals that, and these equal each other, so we'll say and these, and of course don't forget we need to bring that down. So now we have both the same passwords and the correct password. So now we're going to start checking for the criteria. So the first thing I want to check is if our new password is, which is text box 2, our new password is blank. So we'll just say equals empty. That just makes it easy then. And we're going to have a lot of messages here. Bear with me. Then this caption, and we'll just make it say no new password set. So no new password set, right? Because you can bypass all these by putting in the correct password, but then you didn't put anything in the re-entered and the new password, because if they're both blank, they're going to equal each other still. But if it's empty, then we're saying, well, no new password set. Okay, and if that's true, then of course we want to exit sub. Exit sub. Okay, and then we're going to do yet another else if, and you can see I'm nesting these ifs here. So this if is nested within our criteria is all met here. So otherwise, if text box 2 value equals B3, we'll just say B3, like this again. Okay, then that means that our new password's the same as our old password. So our caption is just going to say that. We're just basically inputting all the different errors we can get, right? So that means our new password cannot be, so new password cannot be same as, we'll just say as current, so it's current password, right? Okay, we get past that, and then we're going to exit the sub, of course, if that's the case. We don't want to continue with these errors, so exit sub. Now we're also going to check else if the len, and we're basically going to do the same thing we did below for text box 2. So if our new password, so text box 2 values new password, and we said greater than 30, right? Then, because we're going to just check it again here to be safe, because you can kind of click off into weird places, before the change module has a chance. So if it equals that, then we're just going to exit sub for this one because well, no, we should probably put it. But we declared it down here already, so we're just going to say this same thing. It's nice because I can just copy and paste where I already put it. We're just going to say new password can't exceed 30 characters. And then we want to exit sub. Exit sub. So this is what actually prevents. The change module below with this if is just a real-time notification. This will actually block you from continuing if you go over those 30 characters. Okay, now one more else if for this. So we're going to say else if, and it's going to be another len. Now this time we have, remember we have that minimum criteria of 8. So we're going to check that minimum criteria. So it's going to be the same thing here. Right, we're going to say if the len of this, and instead of greater than 30, we want to say less than 8, right? Then we just want to say for our caption, new password we'll just say must have at least 8, we'll just say characters, like so, and that's great. And of course we'll exit the sub, and that will be the end of this check. Now we are going to get into the check for our characters. So if it's uppercase, if it has the special character, X, Y, Z. So to check if we meet the character and upper, etc. criteria, we are going to loop through each character in text box 2 to check that. So VBA has a function called isNumeric to check if it is a number 0 through 9, of course. And we can check to see if that character meets that, and we'll have at least one number criteria met. However, to check if it is a special character or letter, we're going to need to make some functions for that. So the first function we'll say is letters of whatever we're checking, and this is as Boolean, right? And then we'll say is letters equals the len, right? Okay, the len of whatever we're checking and not X, whatever we're checking, like. And then we'll put some regex language in here, and we're going to spell it out like this. We're going to say the star symbol within here. We're going to do a square bracket. We're going to do A through Z lowercase as well as A through Z uppercase. And that is it to check for the letter. Right, and we'll just end this with our quotations. And that is our regex code here to check for letters. Now we're going to need the same thing to check for special characters, right? So we're going to have one more function. So function, we'll just say is, we'll just say special characters of whatever we're checking. We'll just call that Y as Boolean. And it's going to be the same basic thing. So is special character equals the len of whatever we're checking, and it's pretty much the exact same thing, and not Y like. And the regex code for this is going to be a little bit different. So we're going to say, we're going to compare it to see if it's not like any number or letter. And how we're going to say that in regex is we're going to do the star bracket again, like so. Now we're going to use a caret, right? So say not A through Z lowercase, and then A through Z uppercase, and then 0 through 9, and we'll just put that dash. We'll top this off like so with our quotations. Okay, this is the regex code for whether or not it's a character, because it compares what we are checking to not any lowercase, or uppercase, or numbers. And it's written like this. Okay, now we have functions to use to check. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to declare this as a string so we can work with it. So I'll just say, we'll just do like pass word, and we'll just say string like that. Okay, and that's a string, of course. And we want to say that the password string is textbox2 because textbox2 is what we are trying to set, right? And what we're checking the criteria for. Okay, and now I'm going to declare a bunch of variables that will start as 0 and will be added to 1 if they are true. And we'll use those checks later. So the first variable is going to be whether or not the character we're checking contains number. We'll just say it like that, contains number, and that's going to start off as 0. Then we'll have contains letter, same thing. And what else are we checking? We're checking contains character. That's 0, and then contains. Just bear with me, we're almost there. We're going to say contains upper, so we're going to check if there's uppercase in it, and then contains lower, and I believe that is everything we need to check for. So to check this, we're going to, like I said, we're going to loop through each character in textbox2, our string, right? So to do that, I am going to make an integer, a variable that's an integer, and I'll just call it counter. So I'm going to say, I'll just say dim, we'll call it, actually we'll just call it character counter, and that's going to be an integer. Okay. Okay, and now for the loop, what we want to say is we want to say for this character counter equals 1, that's where we're starting, to the total amount we have in our password string. So if this is, let's say this is 15, it's going to be 1 through 15. That's how many times it's going to loop through it, and it's going to be exact, right? And that will loop through each character. So there we go. Now we're going to start doing a check on each individual character. So the first check we're going to do is we're going to say whether or not it has a number. So we're going to say if is numeric, and there's already a function in VBA for this, of the mid, right? So we're going to have to do the mid, otherwise the counter doesn't work. So the string, of course, is textbox2, and the counter, because each time it loops, it's going to go to the next one out of that total, right? So to whatever the next one is, the length is just one of the one it's checking, and then we'll close that is numeric, right? Now if that equals true, then that means there is a number. So what do I want to do if there is a number? So if it contains a number, I want to say that this equals this plus 1, right? So now we are no longer 0, which means there is one number. Now, what's nice about this too is y'all can actually have the criteria different. This is customizable. Let's say your criteria is must contain at least 5 numbers, right? So this would have to count up to 5. And we'll put the checks after the loop, but if this equals 5, then your criteria is met. We'll get to that later, but for now we're going to stick with this. So that just checks for the number. Now we're going to say if is letter. We're going to use our function, right? Now, what are we checking? The same exact thing here, the mid. So if that is a letter equals true, right, equals true, then, and we have to nest some ifs in here because there's more things we're checking, right? We're also checking if it's uppercase or lowercase. So the first thing we would do is we would say off the bat, it does have a letter at least. So we do at least have a letter, right? So that would be +1. And we are also going to say, we're going to do a check here if the mid of this, so we're going to say if the mid, right? So if the mid equals ucase. So ucase is a function to check whether or not it is uppercase. So if that is uppercase as well, then we want to say that it equals uppercase here. So then that equals that plus 1. There's at least one uppercase in it, right? And I messed up somewhere. If, oh, and then just didn't put a space there. So that's nested in within our letter. So we got to a letter. Now we're checking to see whether or not it is uppercase or lowercase, right? Now, the next thing we need to do is check for lowercase. So this is going to be the exact same thing, except our variables are going to be lower, right? And our function is going to be lcase, which is checking for lowercase if the character we're on is lowercase, okay? And then we're going to go ahead and end the if to our is letters check, so if it's a letter, okay? So, and then obviously this will be 0 if there's no letters in it. All right, moving on. The next thing we're going to check for is just simply special characters, right? So it's the same as letters. We're going to say is special character of the mid. Oh, whoops, I didn't have that. Hold on. So of the mid. So whatever character we're on, it, right, is true. Okay. Then, and you guessed it, we're just going to say special character. I didn't put these in order with this. I'm sorry if that's confusing. Then we're going to say that this is that plus 1. And there we go. We just checked that one character that our counter is on out of our string to see what it is, and then add to our variables here accordingly. So the next thing, right, and of course we want to say next, that kind of completes the loop here. So now that we are checking all the characters, now we're going to check to make sure we meet all this criteria, right? This is just setting our criteria. So first thing we're going to do, we're going to say if, we'll start with contains number. So contains number is, we'll just say greater than or equal to 1, then, and this is what I was talking about earlier, like you could say 5 here instead if you want to, like this is customizable, and you can do that for each one of these variables here. So we're going to say if it's less than or greater than 1, then do nothing. Otherwise, right, because that means our criteria is met. Otherwise, we want to set that caption. So we're going to say the change password caption, right? So the label 6, our error caption equals, and what do we want to say? We just want to tell them that the password must contain at least one number. We'll just say it like that. Must contain at least one number. And then we want to exit sub because we did not meet that criteria. We don't want to continue. And then of course we would also end if, right? Just like that. Now we're going to repeat the same thing for each one of these variables. So I'm going to take this and we're going to check and see if is number is greater than 1, right? We want to do the same thing, except we're going to say must contain at least one letter. So that was pretty much the same thing. Then we're going to check for the special character next. Okay, so we're going to come down one. And we're going to say must contain at least one special character, like so. Now, do know I did set my widths of these to be 180, if you remember. So if yours is shorter, like keep in mind the width of your label here, and it might cut off. That's why I like to have these a little longer. And I would suggest having these, a bit longer. I just verified already that 180 was good enough to fit everything I have already written in here, but you might have to do that accordingly. So now we say, of course, we want this to say character. So we check the number, the letter, the character, and then the last two things, right, is we're going to check for is upper. So if upper is greater than 1, then we'll say must have at least 1. We'll just say upper case letter, like that. And then exact same thing one more time. I know this is really tedious, but it's nice to have a working module, right? And we'll say upper, well, that's actually supposed to be case, and then lower. So lower for this one. Must have at least one lowercase letter. Okay, that is everything we need for this. And that should be yeah, that's everything. So this just set the criteria for all of our what everything should be met from our password requirements, right? So now, given all of this criteria is met, we're just simply going to need to actually perform the password change. And that's as simple as, well, first of all, if the criteria is met, we'll change that to nothing. And then we just want to set the actual password. So we're going to say b3.value. All right, this is where our password is stored, remember. I'm going to say p3.value equals whatever I put into text box 2. So we're going to get text box 2.value. All right. Remember what I said about the worksheets too. Anytime you do stuff like this, it's going to need to be unlocked. And then we'll give a nice little message to let the user know. I'm going to put a beep here, and then we're going to unload. We'll just unload this, start with there, and then we can just say message box. We'll say new password set, just like that. And then you can, customly put your project's name in the title here, in the title, right? But that doesn't really matter here. We just want to say that. So new password set, and this will actually be a message box. Okay, and now everything is set. Now we need to not forget that all of this, right, is nested, including all this, is nested within this if here and all these else ifs. So we're going to need to put a final end if here, right? Okay. And then we can bring this up a little bit, clean it up, and that looks good. Now, there is one more thing we need to finish doing, and that is going to be our code down here. Now that we actually have all the messages that we're going to use, we want to update this. So how we're going to do that is, and unfortunately it's pretty tedious, but we just want to say if the caption equals, and then we're going to have a bunch of ors, like so. And then I will actually go ahead and add these in real quick myself, because it's pretty much just saying the same things as this. So I will be right back. Okay, so the if is now complete, and all this if does is it checks the error box, which is label 6, for every single possible message the user can receive. And I basically am just checking for everything I set here, here, all these, and so on. All right, so, and that's temporary, don't need that. The only two messages I excluded from this were the invalid current password. That only pertains to entering the current password, which is text box 1, and is dealt with already here. And then I excluded new password cannot exceed 30 characters. That message, since that is only for text box 2 and is dealt with within the change of text box 2. And then both of these are also dealt with up in our set password code. So other than those two messages, we just say if it equals any one of these, then we just want to set it blank, because that implies we are entering the enter new password to fix whatever these messages may be telling me I'm doing wrong. And this also applies, so I'm going to copy this. This also applies to entering the re-enter password box, right, which is the third one, because it's the same thing as I'm going to edit the password that I may have messed up, because a lot of these messages can appear for also a wrong, the third one. So that completes our masking toggle here. Now what we need to do is we need to just verify everything. We just completed all of our code. All this we already verified earlier. this customizable. This is if it's correct, it's within that end if, and all that should be good. And then we just have this check, just saying if it's empty upon. Oh, whoops. Okay, I am so sorry. This has to say equal. We already said if it's less than a grade. So this else if already checked for this else if right here already checked to see if you put in the right password and the new password doesn't match the re-entered password. So now, sorry, now we're saying if you put in the correct password and the re-entered password here is the same as the entered password. That's when we do our character checks, check for blank, all the other stuff. I'm sorry about that. So now all we need to do is just verify it. So this completes all of our code for our change password user form. So now I'm just going to select the user form and I'm going to play it. Okay, and I'm going to first verify, I'll just put some random characters in these that are unmasking still works. And you can see it on the left there in the cells. And we set new password, invalid current password. Okay, and we also want to make sure every single one of these. Okay, so by default, it'll hide in the text and then go to mask as soon as I click this. That's what I want. So the next thing I'm going to verify here is the passwords for enter and confirm. So I'm going to go ahead and put in the password, which is test12345 hashtag, right? So I set that, no new password set. So if this was wrong, the first thing it's going to do is say current invalid current password. And that's because of the order we set our code into, right? And that's just dependent on which order these else ifs go into for whatever message you want to appear first. The way I set it up, I personally like, and y'all can tweak the code however you see fit. But this is just how I like it. So now that we have the correct password, okay, well, no new password set. I'm going to enter a password, right? Okay, well, re-entered password does not match. Okay, well, it matches now, and I'm just putting test in these. So new password must have at least 8 characters, right? So that's the next thing we're checking for. Okay, well, you want 8 characters, so I'll put test again. Okay, we'll put test again. Okay, so we met that minimum criteria of 8, right? 4 and 4. So it must contain at least one number. Okay, well, you know what? I'm actually just going to go ahead and put in a bunch of stuff if that's what you want, right? So, and this is what I was talking about earlier. It says real time. It cannot exceed 30 characters. If I try to set this, it'll say that. Now, this is real time. So as soon as I go over 30 characters, so this is 31 characters, it'll say new password cannot exceed that 30 characters. As soon as it goes to 30, it's okay. So we see that that works real time. That's what we want. Okay, we must have at least one number. I put at least one number in here, right? So these have at least one number. Okay, well, it must have a special character. All right, well, I'm going to put in a special character. And we'll go ahead and get rid of that as well. That way we can test the upper and lower. So I'm just going to get rid of the T and the T. So there's no uppercase in there, right? Well, you must have at least one uppercase letter. Okay, so that works good. Everything works as it should. So now I'm going to put all uppercase test. And we're going to put all uppercase test. So there's no lowercase, which was one of our criteria. All right, so now if I click set new password, you must have at least one lowercase. Okay, well, I'll go ahead and make this last T lowercase. Okay, and we're just verifying this thoroughly. And now that we met all the criteria and we have the password as it should be, set new password. Okay, new password set or successfully set. Excellent. So we know that it behaves how I want it to, and it set a new password within all the criteria. Now, some final things regarding the user form here is you can customize this however you want. you can select it. You can say the back color, choose a back color, make these maybe transparent, like so, and so on. Now remember, if you're going to change any colors or anything with these text box, you have to make sure that you also change the icons here, both of them, right? Because it has to be the same background as this. So that's everything, how we want it to look. And this actually completes our user form for change password. So finally, we are just going to add the password required dialog box. It is really quick and easy. So we're just going to insert another user form. And for the objects in this user form, we're just going to put the basic caption here. We're just going to have one text box, and then we're going to have two command buttons like so. And then we're going to also have one more label. And in this label, we'll say just to continue, please enter and you can say your project's name, whatever password. I'll just say enter the password for this, and that is it. We only need that to be one line, like so. And we can just put this here, make that roughly the same size. Okay, make this flush, roughly the same size. This will be our error box. Put a command button here, put a command button here, make this the same height, make it flush. Okay, and then also this needs to be thin. It's just an entry box. This needs to be one over this way. All that's aligned, looking good. And this will be handled by VBA. This will just say something like continue, and then we'll just have cancel here. So we'll just say cancel these. I'll just have one on top of the other. And this will also be red text, just like our last one. So the for color will be the same red like that. And then we'll roughly size this. And then we'll just call this enter. And we'll say abbreviated again, password for the code name. And then the top of it, we'll just say, I don't know, enter password, or whatever your project's name is, password. Right, and then that should be everything we need. See how that looks. That's a simple little enter password to continue. Okay, and then the code is super easy. We just have this, which is continue for command button 1. And then we have cancel, which is command button 2, just like last time. Label 2, and like it says, and then we have label 1. We're not going to work with label 1 on this. Okay, and that is all we need. And then of course we have text box 1. And then all I'm going to do for clicking continue is we just want to verify that the text box of this. So if enter password text box 1 value equals, and then we're going to say the same thing as last time. So it's worksheets. We're going to reference that password worksheets password worksheet, and the range b3 dot value. Then, and this is just checking to see if we have the same, if we put in the correct password. And then here we'll say do the deed, right? Do the deed, whatever it may be. Otherwise, I put in the wrong password. And we just want our caption, which was label 2, right, for this. So enter password dot label 2 caption, cancel caption. And we just want that to say, invalid password. So we're just going to say, we don't need any spaces for this. Invalid, we'll just say password like that. And then that's all we need for that. Of course, we'll end the if. And then cancels as easy as unload the user form. So that's enter password. And that should be everything for our buttons. Now, and this will be your code, of course. All your code will go here. So all your code will go here. Now, a couple little quick things we're gonna have. We're gonna have text box 1 enter. So text box 1 not change. I want enter. So when we enter the text box, we just want to reset this to be nothing, just like that. And then user form initialize, we also want that to be nothing. So user form, and then initialize, we want this to be nothing as well. We shouldn't need these. And that is everything. So just verify this really quick. So I didn't put anything in. As soon as I go back in, it goes away. And then I almost forgot, we need the same password character. I'll just grab that from here by selecting one of these. And I'll copy this password character. And on this text box, we'll just go to password character right here is also that. Okay, and then when we run this, it is hidden. I put in the wrong password, and it is wrong. Let me put in the password, which was this. I'm just going to copy it. So I'm going to run this again. Now when I put in the correct password and click continue, it'll do whatever code you made that requires this. And that is everything you need. Okay, so next I'm just going to insert a module for this, and I'm going to say show dialogues. And the first sub I'm going to have in this module is show the enter one. And then I'll also have a sub for, show the change one, right? And all these need to have is, this one's going to be enter password, so enter password dot show, that's how we bring them up. And this one's going to be change password dot show, like so. And then for our temporary little buttons, we can just assign macro, and then for this one we want to show enter, and right click this one, assign macro, show change. And now when I click these, it will launch the user forms like so. And that is everything. So a few final things here. First of all, since I did customize the appearance of our change password dialog, I also want our enter password dialog to complement that same appearance. So I'm going to make it the same background, and then make our labels transparent. Y'all get the idea here. And again, it's however y'all want it to look. And for our buttons, I'll just do inactive title bar. I like that. Okay, I'll do that for this one as well. Inactive title bar. Okay, let's run this, make sure we like it. I do. The red still looks good in contrast to the background, and I personally like that. Okay, on our workbook, we no longer need our password sheet visible. And then again, do remember that when you protect the sheet, you're going to have the code unprotect the sheet before it changes any values in here, and that's to include the password. Okay, so I'm going to right click and hide, and that completes our entire project. Now to give a practical example of how you might use this, let's just say you have another sheet, and the sheet is just your secret stuff or admin stuff or whatever y'all name it. I'll just, for the sake of this video, say secret stuff. And then in here you have stuff that you don't want to be edited unless you put in the password, right? And then to do that, I'm just going to make it so when you click the sheet, it'll ask for the password. And if you get it wrong, we'll go back to our default sheet. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to actually update our code in here a little bit. And how I'm going to do that is I'm actually going to declare a variable here. So if I get the password right, And I'll just call my variable no pass. And then if the password is correct, then it'll just be blank, right? And then we don't need that here because we want this to be universal and the code not be specific to the user form. So we'll do that with this variable. And then if I get the password wrong, right, which is this else, we'll just say that no pass is yes. So yes, no pass. And then if you cancel, right, you want it to do the same thing. No pass equals yes. Also, we would need the user form to unload because whether we get the password right or wrong, this is no longer applicable after we close it. And that should be everything we need. Also, when we click the X button, we want it to act the same way as this. So what I'll do is I'll actually just go to user form and we're going to go to query close. I'm going to make another variable too for this because we can try to close it and it'll still run the code. So we need to say, we'll just call this close variable in A, and that's fine. So if we get the password right, then that is yes. Okay, and then we'll bring this down here and we'll do a check for that. So if this is not yes, then we want to put our no pass to be yes. So what I'm doing here is basically just saying, okay, I get the password right, because either way, the user form is going to close. But I don't want it to just run the code even if I don't get the password right and click the X button. But I also want it to not cancel and be no pass yes if I get the password right. So that's what this guy is for. And we can also just under initialize here say that that's nothing on default. Okay, I like that. Now we said when we activate this sheet, right? So to detect that, I am going to actually go to the sheets code here and then under worksheet and activate. And we don't need this. So the first thing I'll do, right, because before any code inside here runs, our code here is going to run. So I'm going to say no pass is this on default. And then we're going to do another check. Well, first we need to show the user form, right? So the user form is going to determine our no pass variable, right? So once the user form closes, it's going to continue to check based off what the user form said. So I'm going to say if no pass is true, so if that's yes, then, and I need to put my little quotations there, then, well, we just want to not allow them to go into the right because no pass is true. So you can't get into there. So the way I'm going to do that is I'm actually just going to default back to our main sheet we're working into. So I'm going to say worksheets and this stuff, right? Just our main sheet we're working with. And we just want to activate that. So if I get the password wrong or and I cancel it, I can't seem to get through it, then we're just going to go back to our default sheet. And then down here, we're going to have our code. So if no pass is blank, meaning I got the password right, then we're going to run our code. So the first thing I'll do is I'll just ensure that no pass is blank again. And then our message box would go in here now, right? So I'm going to just cut this out of here. I'm going to paste it into here. Of course, we'll put our little comma there. Okay. So if this is yes, we also need to say exit sub, right? Because we don't want to continue. So if this is true and we activate the other sheet, we don't want to continue with whatever your code may be here. Another thing too is since our variable no pass is used between different modules, we're going to need to make this public. So the way we're going to do that is on our sheet 3, we are just going to say public, our variable, and we're just going to say it's a string, okay? And that makes no pass specific to sheet 3, right? Because no pass is being checked on sheet 3. So now that no pass is specific to sheet 3, we actually need to update that in here to say sheet 3.nopass, see, dot the variable. And then of course we just do that for every occurrence of no pass that we put into here, like so, and that looks good. Okay, so now we're just going to test this. So as soon as I click this, it's going to bring up our user form. I cannot click anything because the user form is active. Okay, and then I put stuff in here, password's wrong, I click cancel, it's going to go back to our default sheet, and then every time I activate this, this is going to come up. Now when I click query close, it's also going to come back to here. And we can test the alternative, and I'm actually going to unhide our password and get this again. All right, I'm just going to copy that. And now I'm going to put in the correct password. And when I click continue, now it does what we want to. I can come in here and I can edit stuff, right? So that's a pretty good practical application. You can have this appear any way you'd like. And it's just up to however y'all use that. Now, to make this dynamic and usable for everything, you can have your code change the caption of this to continue in whatever, however y'all set that up. And then it's nice to have a public variable. Just remember that the variable needs to be declared as public like we did in sheet 3 and referred to properly, whichever way you use it and you call this for. And we'll just have no pass for this. Right? And then that completes our example. So with everything done and explained with an example, we'll just go ahead and recap on some key points here. So the areas that you can customize, obviously you can customize your captions here, or sorry, your error messages for when you get something wrong, your requirements for your password here. So instead of 1 lowercase, you could say have 5 lowercase, 5 numbers, however you want your criteria to be. You can change that here, right? You can also change however you want this to behave with these ifs here and here, as well as our greater than 30 characters if here and here. Y'all can move these around, add more, take away, however y'all want to customize this code. Right. Now, beyond tweaking this code and making it behave differently, there's plenty you can go deeper on with this, like having forgot password mechanism and stuff like that. But personally, I think this is plenty, at least for what I need, right? So I'm going to go ahead and save this, and now we can close it, and that is everything. Side note as well, you can actually delete these icons because they are now nested into the workbook through bitmap, so you will still see them here. Right? Just a quick side note there. And that is the completion of everything I have to show today, y'all. I'm sorry this wasn't as short as it could have been, for not speaking as clear, and that I don't have quality equipment and software for audio and recording. But this is my first ever video on how to do something, and honestly, I'm better at understanding and doing it all than teaching it. But hopefully I got my points across clearly enough, regardless. This isn't me trying to be famous or anything vain like that. I just want to show y'all things that might be useful to y'all. So if you enjoyed this or got something out of it, let me know in the comments. If you have suggestions or things you did or questions about any of this, again, please go in the comments and let me know. I'd be happy to be involved there. With all in all, thank you all so much for watching, and until next time.